Hey guys, just finished up a call with the fire department and thought I'd sit down and spend a little bit of time with you talking about conflict. So conflict is the thing in the story which drives it forward, the reason why a character changes or the reason why a character moves through the story progression. The major type of conflict is man versus man. So if we look in the Star Wars universe, we see man versus man with Luke Skywalker against Darth Vader. Or even earlier, we can look at Anakin Skywalker against Obi-Wan Kenobi. And we see that progression of that conflict between those people propels those characters through the story. The next is man versus self. And once again, we'll turn to the Star Wars universe for this one. So man versus self is when the character struggles with something inwardly, and that inward struggle causes them to develop. So we would see that when Luke finds out that Darth Vader is his father, and that kind of internal struggle that he goes for. Or when Anakin Skywalker makes the shift to become Darth Vader, and how he struggles within himself in the light of the changes that occurred, specifically after his fight with Obi-Wan Kenobi. The next one is man versus society, and unfortunately we're not going to be able to really turn to Star Wars for this example, but a great example would be like Fahrenheit 451, where we have this one large society and a single person is rising up against that. We would also see that in Brave New World, for example, both really fantastic books that came out of the same tradition. You should totally check those out. Now, the next one, we'll turn back to Star Wars for this one, is man versus fate. And that's where that character is rebelling against what is in store for them or what was predestined for them. So what we see is like Darth Vader says, "It is your destiny," and Luke says no and screams and all that fun stuff. And so it was So for Anakin Skywalker, it was his destiny to bring balance to the Force, as in there's way too many Jedi and not enough Sith. And by destroying the Jedi Order, he restored that balance, just not in the way it was predicted in the prophecies. So those are the four really big ones. We'll see those a lot, and then there's some minor ones, and even some authors said that these minor ones don't even exist. For example, Ayn Rand says the conflict of man versus nature doesn't exist, but because nature doesn't make those choices, but as a writer can kind of dictate those choices into the story. So we would see this in like Shakespeare's Tempest or something along those lines. Next, we would see man versus God or gods, so depending if it's monotheistic or polytheistic. So a great example of this is in Forrest Gump by Winston Groom. We have Lieutenant Dan who's raging against God in the midst of a hurricane, and he's screaming out challenges to God. And that conflict propels Lieutenant Dan forward through the story. The next is man versus supernatural. The conflict of man versus supernatural has actually gotten a lot of use lately, simply because of the paranormal teen fiction genre that's come out, which Twilight kind of gave rise to. There's a really strong tradition of this in literature. We see this in Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. We see this in Bram Stoker's Dracula. So there's a really strong tradition of this, but basically this is when we have a ordinary person challenging something much stronger, which they don't necessarily understand. And this could even be, I guess we could see a quasi-modern day version of this as we look at superheroes. When we have the regular person like Batman rising up against superheroes, beings with more power than he just has money, which he's still a normal guy, but he's got money, which I guess in its own way is its own superpower. So those are the 7 types of conflict. So keep your eye out for these. They're really going to have some impact on the stories you read and also the stories you write. So it's a pretty powerful thing in moving stories. If you have any questions, come find me. Other than that, thanks for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.